Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And this is definitely a musically flavored show tonight. We're going to start out with Muhal Richard Abrams, who died recently at the age of 87, a crucial figure in the Chicago jazz scene and in fact in the modern jazz scene across the country. He was a nice African-American boy born on the south side of Chicago. He went to Phillips and DuSable high schools. He became a self-taught piano player specializing in jazz piano. And besides that, he was a composer, teacher, organizer, and scholar. But perhaps his greatest accomplishment was founding the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. The Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians dramatically redefined how individuals and ensembles could compose and improvise their works and how they could take control of their own performances and recordings. Here is Muhal Richard Davis in a 2009 interview with the National Endowment for the Arts explaining his creative philosophy.
Chicago's uniqueness in terms of allowing individuals to pursue their individualism without criticism was great. I look back and I say, well, I'm very lucky to be there at that time. It thrived in certain ways because it wasn't interfered with, because it was confined to certain areas. Nobody bothered us. We just played jazz music all day on the south side of Chicago. We had a place for Cotton Club, a place we play practically all night. One thing that Chicago had and greater wealth was blues. How did that feed into your development? The blues guys played a great part because it was impossible for you to come out of Chicago not knowing how to play blues. Well, if you wanted to sing, it was impossible. I used to go stand in the door, kept the door, because it was real rowdy in there. But the door stayed open all the time. So I'd stand in the door and look straight back there. We founded the AACM, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. What was your reason and how did it evolve? Well, my reason was to have a place to express individual pursuits in terms of composition and performance. The idea was to deal with original composition and original approaches to improvising from that material or improvising as a separate entity. It was an extension of our intentions, the idea of discipline, the pursuit of an art form to younger people. The thing is, you endeavor to grow. And that was the idea. Do you have any advice for younger musicians? Be true to yourself and by all means pursue your individualism. Early on, we all have something to give. Incorporated in your individualism is a special message that can be given to humanity that can come from no other place.
Well, I said this was going to be a musical show, so why don't we listen to a little bit of Muhal Richard Abrams playing a little jazz piano with Young at Heart. But we're going to take a sharp turn now with Wayne Cochran, who died recently at the age of 78, the White Knight of Soul. Wayne Cochran and his group, the CC Riders, played rock and roll. They played backup for Elvis in Vegas, but he was famous for one thing. He had the bitchinest white pompadour in all of show business. He grew up in Thomason, Georgia, and he played bass for Otis Redding for a little while, so he was quite familiar with black music. And he and the CC Riders put on a great show, especially with that pompadour. But we're going to concentrate on one thing. He wrote a classic song, one of rock and roll's best, and we're going to play the first, best, and most popular versions. In 1961, he wrote and recorded Last Kiss, the best of the teen tragedy songs. Here's his original.
I kissed her, our last kiss. I found a love that I knew I would miss. Now she's gone, even though I hold her tight. I lost my love, my life that night. Well, where did my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I got to be good, so I can see my baby when I leave.
What a song. But the best version was recorded in the summer-fall of 1964 by J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers. Amidst all the Beatles and the Supremes and the British invasion, This one went to #2 in the country, and it screams 1964 at you. And pay attention to that bass line.
I kissed her our last kiss, found the love that I knew I would miss. But now she's gone, even though I hold her tight. I lost my love, my life that night. Well, where, oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I got to be good, so I can see my baby when I leave this world.
Well, Wayne Cochran's version of the song gets a couple thousand hits on YouTube. J. Frank Wilson's gets a couple 100,000. But if you're going to go by hits on YouTube, Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam get over 12 million hits. So I guess it's the most popular. It's not my cup of tea, but young people obviously like it. They covered the Wayne Cochran classic in 2000.
Kiss her our last kiss. I found the love that I knew I had missed. Well, now she's gone, even though I hold her tight. Oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I got to be good, so I can see my baby when I leave this world.
It's okay, I guess, but like I say, it's hard to ruin a great song. Well, our musical feature tonight is Pete Moore, who died recently at the age of 79. Pete Moore was from Detroit. He was a childhood friend of Smokey Robinson, and the two got together in grade school. Pete Moore noticed the genius of Smokey Robinson. He truly is a genius. And Smokey Robinson asked him to become part of a musical group that he was forming called the Miracles. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles became one of the legendary Motown groups, and Pete Moore's role was not only bass singer and song arranger, but he was a co-author with Smokey Robinson. Now I got to tell you, when you're co-writing with Smokey Robinson, you're writing with one of the greatest American composers of the 20th century. But Pete Moore was no slouch himself, and he was the co-writer of what I think were Smokey Robinson's two best songs with the Miracles, which is saying a lot. I'm going to play a little bit of both songs by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and then I'm going to play two well-known cover versions, and these songs are so good you can't mess them up. I'll let you decide which one's the best, but I have to tell you, there is no wrong answer. This is Pete Moore working with Smokey Robinson. It's the spring of 1965. There's no better era for rock and roll music. When this song came out, in the span of a couple of months, the #1 songs were a Beatles song, a Supreme song, You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling, Downtown, My Girl, written by Smokey, and This Diamond Ring. I don't think there's ever been a time in popular music before or since when you've had so many iconic songs top the charts in a matter of literally weeks. Motown is in its heyday. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles are reaching their peak. Here they're introduced by Dusty Springfield on British television, Ready, Steady, Go, with one of their great hits from early 1965, written by Smokey Robinson and Pete Moore.
Here with the newest one. Ooh, baby, baby, it is the Miracle. I did wrong. My heart went out to play. The game I lost you. What a place to play. I'm crying.
In 1978, Linda Ronstadt, who loved Smokey Robinson's music, recorded a cover version of Ooh Baby Baby and included it on her double platinum album, Living in the USA. It was produced by her producer Peter Asher of Peter and Gordon fame, and there was nothing bad about this one.
I did you wrong. My heart went out to play, and in the game I lost you. What a price to pay. I'm crying. Ooh, baby, baby.
She went on to sing that one with Smokey Robinson at the Motown 25th anniversary celebration in 1983. A superb performance. Now I have to play one other cover of this song in 1969, done by some singer named Ella Fitzgerald. It's Ella's interpretation, and it's still great. And I have to tell you, if you're Pete Moore and Ella singing your song, you know you've written a good one.
I did you wrong.
My heart went out to play, but in the game I lost you. What a price to pay. I'm crying. Ooh, baby, baby.
What can you say? That's Ella. They followed it up with what I think is the best song of the Smokey Robinson and Miracles collection. This song, written by Smokey Robinson and Pete Moore, is truly a rock and roll legend. Among the greatest songs ever to come out of Motown, Tracks of My Tears.
Since you left me, if you see me with another girl, seeming like I'm having fun. Although she may be cute, she's just a substitute. You're the permanent one. So take a good look at my face. See my smile. Look a little bit closer and it's easy to tracks of my tears.
What a great song that is. During the Summer of Love in 1967, Johnny Rivers up-tempoed it just slightly with a sort of a whiskey a-go-go version, but I have to tell you, it's still a tremendous song, maybe as good or better than the Miracles version.
So take a good look at my face. You see my smile looks out of place. If you look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of my tears.
And believe me, Linda Ronstadt was paying attention. And in 1975, she went into the studio and covered it as well. Sort of a Malibu country version, but she put together some pretty impressive musicians on this. Emmylou Harris, Andrew Gold, whose podcast we've done, Peter Asher, J.D. Souther, Danny Kortchmar, Maria Moldauer. I mean, these were the heavyweights back in Malibu in the day. And the proof's in the pudding. Her version is just as good, if not better, than the other two. Though knowing Linda, she would never say that.
So take a good look at my face. You know my smile looks out of place. If you look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of my tears.
She also sang that one with Smokey at the 25th anniversary Motown celebration in 1983, and before her Parkinson's she sang with him a couple more times, and it was always a very impressive presentation. Pete Moore won the ASCAP Award of Merit for that song. He wrote a couple other great songs too. He wrote Going to a Go-Go with Smokey for the Miracles. He also wrote two of Marvin Gaye's biggest hits, Ain't That Peculiar and I'll Be Doggone, and he wrote one of my favorite Temptation songs, Since I Lost My Baby. His considerable songwriting talents may have been overshadowed by Smokey Robinson, but trust me, that's not a disgrace in anybody's book. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps, and we're going to close tonight with a brief mention of Jon Hendricks, who died recently at the age of 96. And in keeping with our primarily musical theme tonight, Jon Hendricks was an African-American jazz singer. In the 1950s, he teamed up with a white singer named Dave Lambert and Annie Ross, the daughter of a Scottish music hall star, and they invented something called vocalese, which was basically adding lyrics to jazz standards, but not just lyrics for every instrument in the band. Now, Jon Hendricks played club dates with Eubie Blake and Nat King Cole. He grew up and sang with Charlie Parker and Jerry Mulligan, but he's best known as the co-author who added the words to an Afro-Cuban jazz song in 1963 that was given to one of England's top bands during the early days of the British invasion in 1964. At the beginning of 1965, there's that year again I was talking about when we were talking about the Pete Moore songs, the height of rock and roll at the time. The song went to the top of the British charts, knocking off the Beatles. It went top 20 in the United States, and it was a hit all over the world, become a British invasion standard. The group was Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames, and the song that Jon Hendricks added the lyrics to was called Yeah Yeah.
Every evening, when all my days work is through, I call my baby and let's go watch a movie. I met some movies, but she don't seem to dig that until she asks me, why don't I come to her flat and have some supper and let the evening pass by? I'm digging records, this sounds a groovy high five. I say yeah yeah, and that's what I say yeah yeah.